that's probably spoilers. Not gonna go through that. Hey guys, it's Kesara, and today I'm gonna be doing my April TBR. Of Q2 of the year, and because of that I'm going to be picking these books from an entirely different list than I was picking them in the first 3 months of the year. So even though I was pretty bad at following my TBR in the first 3 months of the year, I feel like I've somewhat made up for that during March. But in April it's going to be a completely different set of books, which I'm really excited for, and I'm pretty much not going to be trying to roll over any books from Q1, so it's going to have an entirely different feel, but at the same time these are still books that I've just been wanting to read for the longest while, so I'm really excited to get to them. A lot of these are more classic and older fantasy books that have just been on my list for a while, so I'm really excited for this. And like always, I'm going to be limiting my TBRs to 8 books a month, and this one, a lot of the books are quite a bit longer than I expected, so it's going to be really interesting to see if I can get to all of these. So we're gonna start my TBR with new releases. This first new release is actually for March, but it's coming out at the very end of March, and that's Until the Last of Me by Sylvain Neuval. So this is the sequel to A History Book Comes Next, and in this series it's actually like a historical fiction, but it's a historical fiction sci-fi, so it's following a group of people that there's a sci-fi reason that it's following for them. I'm not gonna go super into it, but in the past, so it's kind of interesting because of that. I also really am excited for this, one because I like the first book, but also because Sylvain Neuval has a really unique writing style. He's very action oriented with his writing, not necessarily with his plot, but with his writing, which is incredibly interesting to read. So I'm really excited to get back to that type of writing style. And while the series may not be my favorite by him so far, it's still incredibly interesting. So I'm definitely excited for his next book. So the next book that I want to read is also in a release for the month of April, and that's A Fevered Star by Rebecca Rowanhorse. So this is the sequel to Black Sun, which I read back when it first came out. And while I didn't love it as much as I wanted to, I was really excited to read the next book in the series, partially because it does end on a cliffhanger. So I was just like, I need the next book right away. But also because I just loved the world building. It had a really interesting world building because it's set in pre-Columbian America and it's inspired by Native American cultures. So I really love that, but it's also a high fantasy. So with those things combined, I just really loved that very creative and unique world building, and I'm really excited to see what happens. Hopefully I'll like the resolution of the cliffhanger and I'm not gonna hate it, but I've been waiting for the longest while for this book to be released, and I'm super excited to finally get to it. So the next book that I have to talk about is a new release for the month of April, and that's The Jade of Janloon by Fonda. So this is a novella that's set in the world of the Greenbone Saga, which I finished earlier this year and absolutely loved. It's definitely one of my new favorite series of all time, because not only do I love the characters and the action, but I love the world building and the magic in this series, and I'm hoping that we get a little bit more of that in this novella. I honestly don't know what this novella is going to be about at all, but I have a feeling it's going to be about like the black market Jade for some reason. I just feel like that's what it's going to be about, but who knows, it might not be. I'm just excited to get more Greenbone Saga content though, so I'm definitely going to be getting to this as soon as it comes out. Before we get to the rest of the fantasy that I'm going to be reading this month, I wanted to include another sci-fi, and that's Persepolis Rising by James S.A. Corey. So this is the 7th book in the Expanse series, which I absolutely love. The Expanse series, I started it, I want to say back in 2019, and just absolutely fell in love with this series. I read the first 6 books and I haven't been able to continue on with it since then. I do remember the books very well. I absolutely love that it is very epic in nature, and it's set during a really interesting time period because humans are able to colonize space, but only in our general area. We don't have interstellar travel yet, but there are some interesting things going on that may need humans to have interstellar travel very soon. But there's also a lot of complex internal political situations that makes the series incredibly interesting. I absolutely love the first 6 novels in the series, and I feel like it's just time for me to get back to it. It's been so long that I just really want to finish it, partially because I've been waiting to watch the TV show until I finish the series, but also because I just really want to get back to it. This is a fantastic hard sci-fi series that I've just been meaning to read for the longest while, so I'm excited to get back to the next book in the series, which is Persepolis Rising for me. I believe there are 2 other books that are out already. I'm not sure if that's right, but if I get to this one and I end end up liking it. There are more books in the series already out that I could potentially read right away too, which makes me excited. So next we have Dragon Song by Anne McCaffrey. So this is the first book in the Harper Hall series within the overall umbrella series of the Dragon Riders of Pern. So I started the Dragon Riders of Pern series, I want to say almost a decade ago now, and I've read like not that many of them. So I'm excited to get back to this world. It is definitely one of the most interesting and creative fantasy worlds that I've seen, or it could be considered sci-fi also, because it's set on another planet and our humans interact with these aliens who also happen to be dragons. So there are dragons, but they're kind of like sci-fi dragons, but they could be fantasy dragons, and they're dragon riders, obviously. The first series I really liked, especially for the that happens in this series. Oh, that's probably spoilers. Not gonna go through that. I really did enjoy the first series, but I didn't feel as attached to the characters as I really wanted to from the first series, but I'm hoping that might change in some of the other series. I'm definitely excited to get back into this world, and hopefully I'll end up loving it even more than I did the first one. The only thing I really know about this series is that it's following musicians, I believe, but that's literally all I know about it, but it still makes me really excited. I just absolutely love this world, and I want to get back to some of these worlds that I've always loved that I just haven't read in a really long time. Also, I have the other books in the series, so this is definitely one that, like, if I end up really loving the first book, I can continue on and read the other books in the series. And I've just been loving binge reading books recently, so I feel like this is one that I can definitely do that with. So the next book that I'm planning to read is Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. So this is the sequel to The Grace of Kings, which is an Asian-inspired military fantasy, and I have to say, I didn't love The Grace of Kings when I read it. It's still really good, mind you, but it is very military. At the time, I had also read The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson around the same time, and they're very similar in the way that the military side of it is structured. And Sanderson's books just have characters that I liked more than the characters in this series, but I still really want to get back to this series. It's been the longest while and I haven't gone back to the series, and I just feel like I need to finally get back to this series. I've been a little bit scared because The Wall of Storms is just absolutely huge, but I've heard this one is better than The Grace of Kings, and I did enjoy The Grace of Kings. It is a very well-written high fantasy, high military, like epic fantasy series that I honestly don't understand why not as many people are talking about. I will say I didn't love the lack of female characters in the first one, but I'm hoping he makes up for that a little bit in the second one. If not, I may not continue on with the series, but I do have the second book and I've been wanting to read it for the longest while, so I'm excited to finally get to this one. And then the last two books that I have on this list are actually rereads for me, but they're for series that I've been wanting to get back to for the longest while. I believe they're both on my series that I wanted to finish this year. And the first one is Kushiel's Dark by Jacqueline Carey. So this is a book that is following a girl named Phaedra who was born with a scarlet mote in her eye, which she's kind of looked down upon because of that, but she's shuffled off to someone who sees the mote in her eye and realizes that it's Kushiel's Dark, which means she's chosen, and she's trained in the courtly arts and the arts of the bedchamber. So it's an interesting concept. I really don't remember that much about it. I did read this a while ago and I just never continued on with the series, but I definitely want to get back to it and continue on with the series, and I just feel like I have to reread the first one because I don't remember enough about the series to continue on with it yet, but I did really enjoy it the first time around, so I'm hoping that I'll enjoy it equally, if not more, this time around. And lastly, yes, I will be finally getting back to Dead House Gates by Stephen Erickson. This is the second book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. I'm currently in the middle of Gardens of the Moon, which is the first book, and I have read Dead House Gates, by the way. I'm just rereading the first two books so that I can get into the rest of the series. This is by far my favorite book in the series so far. Mind you, I've only read 2 books in the series, so that's not really saying much, but man, it is such a good book. This book is the one that made me realize, like, wow, this is gonna be a new favorite series of mine, and I really do need to reread the first one a little bit more seriously than I did the first time so that I can love this series more than I was really expecting to, because I didn't expect to love the series as much as I did going into it originally, but the world building and just like the epic scope in nature of the series is so well done, and the plot in this one in particular is like mind-blowing, and I just absolutely love it. So I'm really excited to reread this one, and just hopefully I'll enjoy it as much as I did the first time around. That is all I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I post videos on Tuesdays and Saturdays, so consider subscribing, and I occasionally post bonus videos, so if you'd like to be notified as soon as I upload, you should click that little bell icon. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.